everybody wants to turn their videos off to start with, please.
Okay, that's gone live.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Good evening, everybody. This is the meeting of the Wellbeing and Finance Overview and Scrutiny panel, and we have been looking at the blue badge issues. Just so that everybody is aware of who is on board at the present moment, what I'm going to do is go around the room and just ask everybody very quickly if they would introduce themselves. I'm Malcolm Tullett. I'm the councillor for the Old Bracknell ward, and I'm the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny panel that's looking into this review. And I'll go to my vice chair next. So, Isabel. Can you unmute, Isabel?
It didn't behave itself. I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. I'm Isabel Mattick. I'm a councillor for Harmonswater Ward. And as Malcolm has already said, I'm his vice chairman of the appropriate Overview and Scrutiny Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go around in order of councillors first and then officers. So I'm going to go to the executive member first, which is Councillor Dale Birch.
Thank you, Chairman. As you said, I'm Councillor Dale Birch. I'm the Executive Member for Adult Social Care, Health and Housing, and this area falls under my portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you. My next on the list is Councillor Mary Temperton.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Mary Temperton, Councillor for Great Hollands North. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nick Allen.
Good evening, my name's Nick Allen. I am Councillor for College Town.
Thank you very much. And Michael Brossard.
Thank you, Chairman. Michael Brossard, Borough Councillor for Central Sandhurst.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the Assistant Director first, which is Melanie. Well, she can introduce herself.
Thank you. I'm Melanie O'Rourke. I'm the Assistant Director for Adult Social Care Operations, and Blue Badges sits under me within the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mahela.
Okay. I'm Mahela Hegatin, and I am the Head of Service for Adult Community Teams and Enhanced Intermediate Care, and I will be overseeing the review with Melanie.
That's very kind. Thank you, Mahela. And last but not least is our Support Officer, Jen Lawson.
I'm Jen Lawson. I'm the Governance and Scrutiny Officer supporting this review.
Thank you. What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Jen to share some slides on the screen for all of us to have a look at. We're going to go through them one at a time. There aren't that many, you'll be pleased to know. It's to basically go through a consultation process with the executive member responsible and the assistant director. A lot of work has already been done in the background, but obviously this would be the last chance we have before it goes for formal recommendation to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission and then on to the executive for approval. So if you'd like to just share the slides, please, Jen. Thank you. And obviously we can roll on from there to the next one. So obviously looking at the background first, as the panel members are aware, there's basically 4 reasons why this has been brought about. And please, if anybody wants to raise an issue at the time, would you please just raise your hand and we'll stop at that particular point. And until I actually get any hands being raised, I'm just going to go through as we said. Right, 4 reasons. We've obviously had quite a few complaints from residents directly to councillors. There was also an article in local media with regards to the disparity between the approval rates of visible and non-visible disabilities. 3 ombudsman's investigations, and 1 led to improvements, 1 no fault, and 1 was a clerical error. And obviously the very recent social isolation and loneliness review also reinforced those problems, and we decided that this required another look at. The approach we took was to start with the journalists that come up with the original article, and we did speak to that individual with regards to where the data came from that actually brought that about. We've spoken to the Assistant Director who is with us today, and the Assistant Community Services Manager who is the Blue Badge Lead Officer. 5 residents were very useful witnesses. We got a lot out of those individuals, and we had written evidence from the ARC, a local organisation that supports people, and others, including 7 other councils that were kind enough to write in to us with their findings and their experiences so far. So some of those findings, we heard about the life-changing, do you want to roll on? Sorry, Jen. We heard about the life-changing issues with regards to the granting or not of a blue badge and how that can impact on applicants. And we've got quite a few quotes, but the one that's in front of you at the present moment is probably the key one as to where we're coming from. And it's about making life as normal as possible, notwithstanding the fact that although there's no upper limit on badges, if we were literally to hand them out as confetti, then there would obviously be some issues with that as well. So evidence from Bracknell and several other councils reflected the government guidance as well, that the threshold for issuing a blue badge has to necessarily be high for a number of reasons, and we actually took that into account. The data basically, and again, the report will go into more detail on this, but basically suggested that we were one of the lowest in receipt of applications nationally. And again, as it says there, it's probably because of our smaller population size to a lot of the other local authorities. However, in relation to that small number of applications, we had one of the highest proportions of applications for non-visible disabilities. And again, we felt that one of the key issues that we had to look at was expectation management. And that features with the next slide, which is effectively looking at how we were going to review how we want to summarise the review moving forward. And the first one there is expectation. They need to be set appropriately, and obviously we need to be clear about what they will need to do, what those expectations are. We looked at explanation. Good communications is always the key to all of these things, and the reasons that lay behind the decisions. And a number of the witnesses were concerned about the fact they were unaware of why their application had been turned down. And also across the board, it's about being fair. So although we had to create a robust process, this is about how to treat people as individuals whilst being consistent in our own decision making. So I can't see, in fact, I can't see my chat group. Jen, have we got any hands up at all anywhere, or is everybody okay to move on?
I can't see any hands up at the moment.
Okay, that's good, thank you. So the themes that we were looking at to address, obviously the first one was expectation management. So it sort of speaks for itself. It needs to fairly represent and assess the applicant's conditions. So what we mentioned earlier with regards to the sort of what has become the strap line, effectively, fairness and communications across the piece. It is key to everything we do, and that communication piece has to deal with both expectation, which is the first point, and also an explanation as to why people are not being granted their blue badges. So again, they were the basic themes that we looked at. Again, I can't see any hands up, so I'm going to be going through this fairly quickly. I'm assuming that unless I do see anything, everybody's happy with what I'm saying. So I'm going to go on. Yes, Councillor Dale Birch.
Yeah, just if I may, in one of your earlier comments, you said quite a few complaints, etc. In terms of blue badges, etc. Where did the evidence of those complaints? Where's the source of that? Because from my point of view, as the exec member, we had an issue that made the press last year, and I have not had many blue badge complaints conveyed to me by members, etc. So that's just one more about balance that I'm after there, because the reason for doing this is right, to check it out. But that was the first thing that I just wrote that down. The other bit was when you talk about you treated fairly, or the system must be fair. Is there anywhere in the report that you recognise that the excellent job that our officers are doing in what has been, in the last 12 months, very changed circumstances because of the hidden disability side of things? And if you do look at the statistics for how things have been dealt with, I just wondered if there is within, or going to be within, the report a highlight that one of the things that was given in the evidence was the consistency of the decision making here at this council, and that hopefully people can be confident that they will be treated fairly due to that basic evidence.
Thank you for that, Dale. I do see your hand up, Isabel. I'll come to you in a minute, but if I could just answer those two questions from Councillor Birch first. With regards to the complaints, as far as I'm aware, were fed through normal channels. I can't speak for others. I personally received 2 complaints direct from members of the public, and both of those complaints were put through normal channels. I'm assuming that others followed the same stance, and I'm sure Melanie will be able to give us the breakdown, which we've got for the report, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that breakdown of complaints was. With regards to the fairness question, all I would say there is we're looking at this review, not at the process fairness, we're looking at outcome fairness. And we've linked it together with expectation management because I think, as we all discovered at the time, for those people, when we interviewed, for reference, Dale, we were lucky enough to get 2 people that were kind enough to speak to us who were successful, and we had 2 people who were not successful. And I'm sure it's not beyond the wit of man to realise which ones were and which ones weren't. And I think that's the thing about expectation. But having said that, those that were successful were obviously happy with the process and the outcome. Strangely enough, there was a slight split with regards to those that were unsuccessful, because although they were saying they were happy with the process, they were unhappy with the outcome. Well, there's a surprise.
Yeah.
However, some of the evidence that we received from those individuals was very, very powerful. As I'm sure you will realise, we took account of some of the statements that were made, particularly where it appeared to the panel that on the face of it, it looked unfair, but we weren't going to go into any form of appeal process as part of this review, and that was made clear to every single one of them. We wanted to know how they felt about the process, and they all kindly completed a questionnaire, and they all had the same questionnaire. So we've got information from that. I'm not sure if that actually answers your question, Dale.
Oh, that's fine.
Sorry.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Isabel.
Thank you. Thank you. I personally know of one. I really cannot understand why it was turned down. I do have personal knowledge, which I cannot disclose to you. They were turned down. The distress it caused to the family actually was horrendous. They knew what to do. They appealed and they got it back. But that wasn't fair. The trauma that gave that family was enormous. And I think that comes under the fairness. Please, if you're going to turn somebody down, have good reasons, because some don't necessarily need a blue badge, they're borderline even, but some, it's an essential part of their lives to have a blue badge. So we really have to be very, very clear about why we're doing this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've also seen Mary Templeton's hand up, but before I do, the Assistant Director, Melanie O'Rourke, has placed something in the chat. Do you want to actually speak to that, Melanie, or shall I just read it out?
I'm happy to speak to that, Chair. I just thought, just to make sure that we've got that information that you'd just referenced to a moment ago, and making sure that the panel has the information. So there were 3 formal complaints that came in through our complaints process during that 1-year period, and that equated to 10.1% of all of the adult social care complaints during the year. So 2 of those reached the Ombudsman. 1 was upheld and 1 was not upheld, and the other remaining complaint was resolved at stage 1.
That's really kind of you. Thank you very much. Would you like to follow up on that, Dale, at all? Or is that okay?
No, I was just, thank you for going into that. It was the comment early on that quite a few complaints, and the value from doing this review clearly is important, but I didn't want the impression given that there's been a flood of complaints or anything, that this is Scrutiny and the council responding to some complaints that were made as part of its review. Lovely, thank you.
No, that's absolutely fine. And as I said earlier, I can only speak for myself. I received 2 informal complaints. They were both referred through to the formal complaint procedure. Whether they ended up there or not, I could not tell. And I know for a fact that 2 other councillors also contacted me as well. And I think the same thing applied to them. Okay. Mary.
I'd just like to say that the value of this is to make the process even more consistent and even better. And the big thing that came out to me was communication, because there was, we can improve that. I'm sure we can improve the communication.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. So I probably will go on at that point. They were the themes we were looking at, and I'd like to come on now to the draft recommendations. What I would say is these are the collective recommendations of the panel based on the evidence, all of the evidence that we heard during the course of the review. Recommendations 1 to 5 are made directly to the departmental review, as we found that this provided the most immediate and effective approach to implementing them, bearing in mind we had a really useful meeting with the Assistant Director, and the process side of things is actually being looked at internally as we speak. So effectively, for the public's benefit, there are 2 reviews running. One is an internal review, which is being undertaken by the Assistant Director, and this particular review. So the process side of it is being looked at internally. We're effectively looking at the outcome side of it. So recommendations are also, recommendations 1 to 5 are also presented to the executive for their oversight. Recommendations 6 and 7, which are on the next slide when we come to it, don't really align that well with the current departmental review. So we will make those recommendations to the executive for approval and their oversight. So the actual recommendations that we're looking at, and what I'm going to do is go through them one at a time. Oh, sorry, did you want to say something about that, Dale, before we get into the recommendations themselves?
Sorry, I thought you were about to do recommendation 1.
Oh, no, I am.
Yeah, my request, my hand went up. It's a premature hand.
No worries, no worries. I'll come to you first anyway. Just to actually say about recommendation 1, the idea of this one is to address fairness and consistency, and helps to manage the expectation by providing case studies which can be used for the internal communications team. And I'm not sure if this was the point that was raised earlier, Jen, with regards to data protection, but should have access to data improvement. Yes, right, okay. So obviously it will be in line. This is the point that needs to be, sort of stressed. It will be in line with data protection policy of the council. So it won't just be any case study with names going anywhere. It will actually fully need to comply with all of our data protection policies. So Dale, yes.
Yeah, no main problem with the words, etc., in this recommendation. I did, however, just want to clarify the term customer services, because where necessary, in line with data with other teams involved in the process, e.g. customer services, I just want to flag, and I know it will be part of the review, the need for care where if another part of the system is the entry point, that we get that consistency at that entry point, and coming on to your previous words, and that within that customer service first contact, there isn't an expectation that the later part of the process or whatever doesn't deliver. So all I'm doing there is just flagging the need within the review that we do of the different agencies and partners that we will use to improve the service, that we don't have one part of the service setting an expectation inappropriately, and then it's all done consistently and within due and proper process. So, but that's just me, because whenever I see the term customer services sat there, I always have a quick shudder of, select 1 for this and 2 for that, and that's what I hope we're not going to.
Can I just support that statement all the way down the line? It was actually very, very clear to everybody that we didn't want to go through a number crunching process.
Fine, that's good.
If you look further into a lot of these recommendations are interconnecting. I mean, if we'd have unpicked it completely, there might have been something in the order of 20 recommendations. So what we've tried to do is put them into succinct brackets. And if you go into recommendation, we haven't got there yet, but recommendation 3, the final bullet point, what we were looking at there was how individuals were filling in the forms in plural, and the fact that there were overlapping requirements between different forms, and some people had both physical and non-physical disabilities. There was confusion, and obviously the gov.uk standard form, which Bracknell is currently using, can actually be quite confusing. So it's definitely a partnership arrangement between the Wellbeing and Finance panel and the Adult Social Care team through Melanie to actually weave together a coherent approach with regards to the forms and everything. But what it's coming back to is there are a number of individuals, as we found out in the isolation and loneliness review, where there is a digital deficit, and to do something online as opposed to a piece of paper, the complexity of the questions that end up in a simple online form, need to be unpicked. And that could be done by someone like the customer care team. And the big caveat is following appropriate training, which will be given between I will defer back to Melanie on this one because it's quite a complex area. But obviously, we're talking to both Melanie and Bobby Mulher to getting that right.
Yeah, it's how to get the right information and not how to coax appropriate information.
Yes. Do you want to comment on that, Melanie?
Yes, of course. And I think through the review, we've identified some of the sort of backwards and forwards of information between ourselves as officers within the council and then through to individuals, because the form isn't complete enough for those requirements. So we'll be working through taking that sort of feedback on board to make sure that we've got a blend of making sure that it works for the people that we're here to support and gives us enough information to be able to make that decision on that, hopefully on that first go of looking and reviewing that information. But obviously, if there is a need for clarity, we would go back.
Sure. And what I might do at that point then was include recommendation 2, because that supports the idea of fair decision making for complex cases and increases the curiosity level. And I think that's what we were talking about, is actually getting the people that are actually sort of helping through the process to be more curious about the condition and to ensure that the right level of technical medical input is provided. So actually, in a way, 1 and 2 sort of go together.
And I think that other part on that is we talked about the need to communicate with people, so part of our web pages and so on, so people know what to provide with us. We've got the expertise when it gets to us. Yes. And we can source that, but it's about letting people know what will help support their application.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, Dale.
Could I, as you've come on to 2, the first sentence of 2 caused me to question, and that says that the blue badge process includes clear and objective scrutiny of refusals before a final decision is made.
Internal scrutiny, that is, Dale, not open scrutiny.
No, sorry, that's fine. No. I accept that. That happens now. That they don't just bung it out. A letter out. We've arrived at this decision. Let's have a look at it. That's part of the process now, and so I'm wondering whether an amendment, because that. Before they do that now, what we're really asking for is a bit of added value to that bit of the process.
Hold on a second, though, Dale. I'm hoping that someone else is going to come in and support us here. The thing about internal scrutiny isn't attacking officers' intentions or ability. What it's saying is the scrutiny element is about not understanding some of those complex areas that needed. So the objective scrutiny is to make sure that we actually make life easier. That's rather than it going through a process, it was to make life easier for people coming out the other end.
Yeah, no, I understand that. All I'm saying is, at the moment, before, right, a final refusal is sent to people, right, we do have a look at, right, the content, etc., and how that's been arrived at. We do that. So we do that now. So all I'm suggesting or requesting or seeking clarification on is what we're saying is that there needs to be an enhanced RNA review and approve process, right, over and above that which happens now.
All right, I got you. I'll come back to that point, Dale. But
that's all right. I mean, it's not die in a ditch stuff, but I think it gives that bit of balance to it, because
understood.
It made me feel like we didn't do that now, when I do know we do.
Understood. Isabel first, then Mary.
Yeah. Sorry, the case I referred to later would totally disagree with that. There was very strong medical evidence to say why a blue badge should be issued, and yet it's denied. So I'm sorry, it was let down on that.
All right, thank you, Isabel. Mary?
I think maybe the second sentence should become the first sentence and say the scrutiny should ensure, in light of what Dale Birch said, the scrutiny should ensure that appropriate medical evidence and expertise has been considered in making a decision, thereby ensuring clear and objective scrutiny of refusals before a final decision is made. I think then that would add the extra bit that it's the medical evidence and the expertise, which is what came out. That they weren't always sure that anybody who'd read the thing, and this is from the people, they weren't sure that anybody had actually, with a medical history or medical expertise, had made a decision.
Yes, that's right.
So actually, Mary, that strengthens that recommendation. It said, yeah.
Have you got that, Jen? Can you amend that to make it?
Yep, I've got that down. Thank you.
Yeah, so that ties in with everything everybody wants, I think. Then, yes. Sorry, Melanie. Yes, you're on mute, Melanie.
Had to do it sooner or later. Sorry about
absolutely.
that. I just wonder if we know that the essence of this is around hidden disabilities, but I think the nuance here is that one is specifically around hidden, a lot of it will be covering it across because it's that experience, be it hidden or physical disability. So we're looking at it in that round. But I think that part about the medical evidence and the expertise where we're building up our workforce, I wonder if we just want to use hidden disability in there so that we can see that this is the growth in the new area of work.
I hear what you're saying, Melanie, but I think the panel, I'm speaking on behalf of the panel, so I'm speaking out of turn. We've got panel members that will put me right, I'm sure. But I think what we were saying there, we wanted consistency across the board so that we can actually run a simple process on the basis that sitting behind that simple process is a very complex set of issues. And it's to allow dual applications in a way. So it's, although someone might have a hidden disability, they may also have a physical disability. So it's actually, I'm not sure. Is anyone else like to actually add to that? Nick, it needs to apply to all disabilities, not just...
Yeah, no, that's sure, thank you.
Yeah, so Nick has just supported that as well. So I think on this particular occasion, Melanie, I think we'd like to leave the word hidden disability out because it needs to be holistic.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Could I, Malcolm, could I just, rather than delete the whole of that sentence, first sentence of 2?
No, we're not going to, Dale. I think Jen has been asked to rearrange it back.
Oh, good.
Way round.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, sorry, what was that? I thought first sentence was going to go.
We start off with talking about appropriate medical evidence and expertise leading into the clear and objective scrutiny. So the only bit that's missing that will be implied, it's already taking place.
All I was going to say, yeah, the final, I was going to amend that second sentence just to say the final decision scrutiny should ensure that it make, that was all. No, that's fine.
I'm just going to leave that to Jen, if that's
okay. No, sorted.
Because she's the wordsmith. Have you got enough, Jen?
I have, and the report will also acknowledge current good practice, of which you've already mentioned that there is already a review. So the flow of the report should make it clear that this is an enhancement, and I will flip the sentences round as Councillor Templeton suggested.
Okay, thank you. If we can move on, if there's nothing else, we move on to recommendation number 3, which is a multi-recommendation. There's quite a lot there, but it recognises the massive variety of conditions that cross over different criteria and present themselves in different ways. The aim is to create an application process that allows individuals to describe their conditions fully and removing barriers. The idea is to remove barriers. So the idea is what I've said, I think about 3 or 4 times now, is to make a very complex set of potential conditions. We in fact, just for you, Dale, we heard from someone that their child had a condition that was so rare there was only 100 others in the whole world. And that's the point I think Isabel was making earlier. That individual was basically saying it felt like nobody, read any of the papers, and that's what we're trying to get to there. So it's more open, but it's still got to be robust. So again, would you like to comment on recommendation 3, or is there anyone else that would like to comment on recommendation 3, or can we go straight ahead and say it's accepted?
I'm looking forward to it being dealt with as part of the process.
Yeah, so I put my hand up, because it's probably easier if I do it that way, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yes, please.
Thanks for that. I assume we're not going to go through.
Put your camera on, please, Michael.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, I will, of course. Sorry about that. We won't be going through the individual bullet point, but I just wonder, I thought that in the discussions that we had, we were going to make those people who had submitted the application that had been declined for whatever reason, made aware that there is an appeal mechanism in place so that they are aware, because I think 1 or 2 of the people we interviewed, they said they weren't aware that they could appeal. And I just wonder if in saying that, we could actually, rather than saying refused, we could actually use the word declined for the application. It's just that I don't see it actually incorporated in any of the recommendations. Right. I thought it was something we discussed.
Yeah, no,
but I may be wrong.
I'll keep the camera on, Michael, until we finish.
Yeah, okay.
If you don't mind.
Okay.
There's a couple of issues there, Michael. One is the recommendation to the executive with regards to both local guidelines and the empathetic rejection letter. Come on to at number 6 and 7. So that's embedded into it, but without those particular words. Although we can sort of press that, and I'm sure Jen's picked that point up. With regards to, in fact, I've lost it. What was the other point in terms of the rejection letter and the appeal?
Decline rather than refuse.
Yeah, declined seems less harsh than the word refused. I just feel that we're trying to soften it. It's maybe being pedantic, but it's just an observation.
It's not pedantic. It's just a little bit late in the day, Michael. So I'm not sure if I've got no objections to it personally. I'm quite happy, but I think we'd need to listen to what Melanie has to say, because we have a refusal letter. We are refusing the application. So if it's pedantic, I don't know. What do you think, Melanie?
I think I just need to check the guidance, because there are things in there about the language that we have to use, such as appeals, and depending on the timing where those comments came in about not being clear about appeals and so on, we have worked on that since the Ombudsman case, so we have made changes. So depending on the timing of that might have been resolved in time. But what we'll make sure, and I think throughout all of this, it's making sure that letters and responses are done in a way which is really clear for people, and we'll make sure that we get that balance between what is clear and what is the language needed within the guidance.
Okay, so I think what we'll do, following on from the note in the chat form from Nick a minute ago that he's happy to stay with the word refusal, I think what we'll do at the moment, Michael, is stick with that word unless Melanie comes up with some way of softening it down a bit. But I think Melanie's absolutely right. We need to actually follow what the statutory guidance tells us. So
I'm happy with that, Chairman. It is just that it was something that we did discuss, and we did have an opinion on and a view on. So yeah, I accept what Melanie said, and I'm quite happy to leave it to a professional guidance.
Thank you for that. Anything? I saw at one moment you had your hand hovering, Dale. Did you want?
No, I was just agreeing with Nick. There's no ambiguity with the word refused.
Absolutely. Okay. So if there's nothing else on recommendation 3, I'm going to move on to recommendation 4. If you can, right, thank you very much, which again reflects the changing requirement for expertise. Largely, and this is again going back to what Melanie was saying, largely brought about by the non-visible disabilities, but it moves it away from the simple mechanics of just walking. So is there anything anybody would like to say about recommendation 4?
It's just a comment. I didn't know whether it was duplicating number 1. That was all.
Does it duplicate number 1? Right.
Is it number 1? Was that training? Which one was I thinking about? Medical. Oh no, it's. I got the feeling it was kind of belt and braces, but no.
I think it is slightly different, Dale. But
no, that's fine. That was my only.
Jen, would you just, before it goes out finally, would you just look and see that it is deduplicated if there are any there, please? Yes, Nick.
Hang on. I think it supplements it rather than duplicates it. One is about the refusal process and saying about whether you've got, whether you've actually made the right decision. And the other one is about the process per se, making sure that we actually engage with the right medical people.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that.
Got that. Yeah, no, that's cool.
All right, thank you. But the same thing applies though, Jen. If you just make sure final analysis that, it's definitely not, there's no duplications there, would be really kind. Thank you. Right, so is that number 4 accepted for making a recommendation? Good. Number 5, hopefully should be fairly straightforward. It's just an upfront way of managing expectations and establishing a two-way communication process. Again, any questions on that, anyone? Any comments, observations? I've got a chat. Is that an old chat there? Hold on a second. Oh, it's an old chat.
Just Chairman, are we putting a date in? Because it does say to be begin by, would it be September or could it be an alternative date?
No, it's still
end of October.
All of the implementation things are in there for September, with the exception of this one. Oh, sorry, that's number 5, which is the engagement. No, as far as number 4 is concerned, that's also by the end of September. Melanie has mentioned that her internal review should be coming out around about the same time, and with a bit of luck, they will all integrate, tie together, and they will all be out at the same time. And the internal review will be taking account of the recommendations that we're making. Would you like to add to that, Melanie? Have I got that right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So we'll be blending this with the work that we've already have as part of our scope.
Okay. However, with regards to the engagement process, as Melanie said earlier, with regards to the ARC, if they have the ability to do it, they will respond to individual requests. I think I've got that right. Generally speaking, the outreach program won't start until after you've got all your systems in place.
Yeah.
Again, have I got that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Excellent. Is that okay, Michael?
Fine. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, that was the recommendations directly to the internal review. And obviously, we then come on to the recommendations to the executive direct, because they're outside of the area of the departmental review. So again, the refusal letter, the words we're going to stick with, we're mixing them up here as well, because it says rejection letter there, and we've got refusal letter as well. So actually we've got 3 alternative ways of terminate. Are we going to call this like a refusal letter until we hear otherwise?
Because the application is refused or agreed, isn't it? Approved.
Yeah, as long as that's done in an empathetic way, I think people understand, even those that did get refused, understood that there was a likelihood of getting refused, but there was just it wasn't done very empathetically. And I think everybody in the process has accepted that that's the case. So yes, Dale, then Nick.
Yeah, can I just check what's meant that the executive reviews rejection letters? Are you suggesting that every letter that goes to someone, it's got to come before the executive in effect, before it can go out? You've just scared the hell out of me there.
No, absolutely not. What we're saying is that you actually instruct, if you like, you commission or arrange for, and we're not even expecting you to get your pens and paper out and do it yourself. what we're actually suggesting, sorry, Dale, that might need a little rewrite.
I just had this, I just had this picture of these letters go, that's not, and it's my judgment call as to whether it's empathetic or not.
Well, if you've read it that way, Dale, I sincerely apologise. That's not what it was meant. What we want is for the executive to arrange for the refusal letters to be more empathetic.
So the standard type basic frame letters are, okay.
It needs to take account of the fact that at the other end of that letter is a person that's actually had their life turned upside down.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Right. Nick?
Yes, it was just to say that presumably under 6, you're going to change the word rejection to refusal letter in that recommendation, because everything else is refusal at the moment.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Unless Melanie comes back and says that that's not the case. As it stands at the moment, our default position is that all words, rejection, denial, refusal, is all about refusal.
But it needs to match the terminology that's recommended by the government or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And last but by no means least, number 7. This is something that we spoke about quite a lot in a way. It even come from some of the other councils and the ARC and our other witnesses, that this guidance is just that. And it doesn't mean to say we have to follow it as such. We can actually both supplement it with local guidance, and we can also have our own policies and procedures. It's statutory guidance, we understand that. So the essence of it has got to be followed. But in the same way as, for instance, licensing has a local licensing policy, even though it's governed by licensing cases, it's something that we need to look at locally. And this is also part of where we're saying we need to look at how our website is put together and how the whole thing is addressed. So we basically want a local policy. Yes, Dale.
Yeah, choosing licensing wasn't the best.
Okay, all right.
The local guidance is just as confusing.
It was the only thing I could think of, sorry.
Yeah, the local guidance is just as confusing as the national. Sorry. The serious point. If we're to do this, we will have to be exceptionally careful, because one of the things I would be keen to make sure was local guidance didn't give a conflicting statement or allow someone to believe, oh, look, the local one, if we can get that, the local one's more in my favour, so I want to, all I'm doing here is counselling a great deal of caution when putting this together, because it would be really unfair if we all sat back thinking we've got these lovely local guidance, when in actual fact what we're doing is causing confusion or upset to the people that really matter. Or like I say, local guidance and guidelines would need to be very clearly delineated and such that there could be no ambiguity between that and that. That's where I really
I think that's fine.
But the rest of it, use of the application forms, use on website and all that, etc. That's fine.
I think where we're coming from here is it's a recognition that Bracknell Forest can shape its policy locally, and it's there to supplement and support national guidelines, but it allows an increase in the scope of the evidence insofar as that wide range of conditions is concerned. It allows it to widen its scope a little bit locally.
What I'm hoping and this is the positive of this, what I'm hoping is by doing this, we're able to demonstrate, for instance, that we, as part of the journey to the decision, we, within our local guidelines, we have consulted the nominated person in children's services.
Of course,
that we
absolutely.
have consulted the nominated person with mental, so that anybody that wants to subsequently see how the decision was arrived at can say, oh, that's how they do it inside against the national ones outside. So happy with that. All I'm doing is counselling the necessary caution to say we've got to make sure that it doesn't cause confusion.
Understood. And on the basis that will be an executive decision that's going to be made, your decision will end up framing what you've just said.
Correct.
If you agree that the recommendation is a good one, it's the executive that are actually going to be directing how that policy is put together. Okay, Nick and then Mary.
Yeah, just to follow up from what Dale was saying, basically, I think the idea behind this was that there is a national website, but it's quite poor, and this would allow us the ability to put in a bit more detail so that we can actually get out the information we need up front. And essentially that's us not putting our own rules in, but changing the way the information is asked for in such a way that we get the information we need rather than using the standard standard government website.
Sure. I mean, for instance, when you follow the national website, it doesn't tell you the sort of bits of information that we'll be looking for. Whereas if we couch it ourselves locally, we can actually guide people into exactly what sort of information we want, and that would help them through the process. Mary.
I think I accept what Dale was saying, and I think that this was really in line to make it not to give everybody the great expectation, oh, I'm going to get that if I go down the lot, but actually as an information thing to know what evidence can be considered, who will be answered, and to show that this really will be looked at, this really will be considered, because there was a lot of there was a lot of the witness said, I don't think any of the information was received. I don't think any of it was read. Now, this might be their perception, but this local plan or local instruction will show that actually the council does do all this, and the council will take all this into account, so that it will not improve their I don't think they'll all think, oh, I'm going to get this time, but it will give them more greater proof that this is actually going to happen, and they will be listened to, and this is the way in which the borough acts to give them better support.
Absolutely. All of the above, Dale.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else to talk?
So I just wanted to make sure that when it does come through the executive, that there will be an emphasis on making sure that local guidelines don't confuse. That's all.
I don't think anybody on the panel wants any conflict.
Absolutely.
Local guidance.
Totally.
It's purely and simply to top it up, to help. It's there to help. Because as Nick has just pointed out, we all looked at what was out there nationally and we think it's not very good.
Yeah, agreed.
We can do a lot better. It's as simple as that. Right, that's it. I'm happy to finish the meeting at this particular stage, unless anyone has got anything they want to say with the slight amendments you've got there, Jen. I think we're ready to roll.
Thank you, Chairman. Good night.
If there's nothing else, I think we can go offline again, Jen. Thank you.